How financially secure would Scotland be without a central bank? I mean, that's one of the things that I think unnerves a lot of people who are wavering on independence, is that, you know, for all the turmoil that we've seen as a result of the decisions made in Westminster, the Bank of England has managed to keep things much more stable than they would have been. And you know, I find it really fascinating that you talk about the turmoil in Westminster, and, you know, there's been a lot of that recently, but essentially your proposal, not just in terms of currency, but in terms of independence, is to create more turmoil. So, I mean, you know, is it sort of better because it's SNP turmoil rather than Tory turmoil?
No, John, I'm going to let you answer that, I promise. I'm just going to get round to you.
So, I would just like to say at this point, I'm not a big nationalist, but I think there's a fallacy. I hear it all the time, scaremongering, that Scotland somehow couldn't make it as a country. A small country of 6 million people within Europe. We would do just fine. We're no daft. Our heads don't button up the back. I think we'd be fine. We're sensible. We're known throughout the world for being sensible with money. I think we'd do fine.
So coming back to the point about scaremongering and the last referendum, we were told that the only way to be sure of staying in the European Union was to vote against against independence. We were also told that our pensions wouldn't be safe if we left the UK. And, you know, look at the situation we're in now.
Okay, and the woman here in the front, you're nodding your head all that in the hang on, we'll just get a microphone to you. There we go. No, don't worry.
I find it hugely condescending that this whole once-in-a-generation thing still comes up.
Well, I mean, in fairness, this woman was making the point.
Yeah, no, I know, but so much has changed, and there will never be a perfect time for a referendum. But come on, if this isn't it, I really don't know when is. And I find it incredible that we can constantly re-elect an SNP government, and yet Westminster turn around and say there's no mandate for it. It's just hugely condescending and completely arrogant. You're just turning your back on the Scottish people and the Scottish nation.
What is the democratic route to independence of Scotland?
I just want to very quickly go back to John's big list of questions, and the one that he missed and maybe wants to answer now is, what currency would an independent Scotland have, and for how long would we continue to use the pound? You're the Economy Secretary, you're the Deputy First Minister, so how long would an independent Scotland use the pound for?
Well, I answered that question.
No, you didn't, John.
Well,
tell us.
Allow me to repeat that again, but I'll just say what I said the last time, which is that we would use the pound, and then when the economic conditions and tests were met, they would be...
So what are those conditions?
Well, the conditions are all about economic stability,
and
about the ability... Sorry?
And they are?
Well, we've published that. Well, if you want me to give you a page of a reading of the Growth Commission report, I can do it.
I don't particularly want you to do that, if I'm honest. I'm thinking reasonably briefly, and also I want Douglas to answer this one point.
Rather than me doing it for you, Douglas.
But I think the point... Sorry, John.
But the key point for me is the point the lady in the front here made.
Okay,
well, democratic argument
let's
for a
let Douglas
referendum
answer that then, because
so
it's unionist politics. So what you're saying is you feel patronised?
I feel patronised, and I find it hugely condescending that you know, Liz Truss can turn around and say, ignore Nicola Sturgeon. How dare she? She's an elected politician. This woman hasn't even been elected by anyone. We are a people, we are a country, and how dare you just say no without even engaging in a conversation with us?
Well, we are engaging in this conversation, and sadly
you're saying no.
Well,
that's what you're
I
saying.
don't believe in independence. I will never support separating Scotland from the rest of the United Kingdom. But on a democratic route, that's put forward by nationalists. People who want to separate the country put that forward. You wouldn't expect a unionist to explain how we could divide from the rest of the UK.
Brexit was all about, you know, returning sovereignty and getting your borders back and all the rest of it. I don't particularly think that the rhetoric that happened in 2014 was as divisive as the 2016 Brexit referendum. Yeah. But if you want to follow that argument through, ultimately that's what independence is. So what you stood for as a Tory for Brexit is exactly what we want in Scotland. We want to be sovereign and make our own mistakes and make our own way forward.
But we've had that debate. We've had that debate. We've had that discussion. John also mentioned about the Smith Commission delivering more powers, except John's government handed them back to Westminster. Powers over social security were devolved to Holyrood. His government couldn't enact them, so they handed them back to Westminster. So let's use the powers we've got to improve A&E waiting times, to improve education, to do all these things we could do right now, rather than seeking more powers and to divide the country all over again.